On May 1st, 1989, my mom was murdered while she was leaving for work early in the morning in the parking lot. Since they were going through a divorce, my dad was the likely suspect. So 2 weeks after the homicide, they arrested both my brother and my father. My brother was placed in juvenile detention, and my father was arrested and subsequently convicted of my mom's homicide.
Pune never believed her father was guilty. It just didn't make sense. There was no real evidence that implicated him, and besides, she had reason to believe a new group of friends her mom had been hanging out with was much more likely to be involved. But while her brother was eventually released from custody, her father spent the next 16 years in prison.
My mom's homicide, my dad's incarceration, it's a big story, and it has a lot of moving parts to it, and we're getting close to the end of it, and so there are certain things that I won't be able to talk about until after it's done.
Right now, Pune needs to hold some information back to avoid jeopardizing the work she's been doing since 1989 to prove her father's innocence. It's too late to make a difference for him. He died in 2019, a dozen years after his release from prison. But Pune wants justice for both of her parents. She's determined to undo what she says were mistakes, or outright malpractice, by the Washington state justice system. And she's determined to hold the real killer to account.
You know, back in 1989, I went to the funeral home, and I told my mom, I'm going to get the people that did this to you. While we were in court and my dad's sentencing, I told the DA, we're not done. I'm gonna be back. You've made a mistake. So I was just really focused on that. I told her I would get the people that killed her, and I meant it.
When her family was blown apart, Pune was a college student at Washington State. She had no money, but she soon realized she would need a lot of it to fund what would become her life's mission. Some people want to become wealthy just to be wealthy and never get there. Pune did get there, but as a byproduct of her relentless focus and determination to realize her goal.
One of the things that happens when you're arrested and convicted of a homicide, you literally spend your life savings trying to prove your innocence. And that money doesn't go far because lawyers and investigators are really expensive. I didn't have even enough money to afford cigarettes. And I remember going to it was Plaid Pantry. I gave him my debit card, and it got declined. I'm like, I just called the bank, and I have $14 in there. I don't know why my debit card declined me. He was kind enough to let me take the cigarettes, and I grabbed the cigarettes, and I went home, opened up a bottle of wine, and sat in the middle of my garage looking up and saying, I need money. I can't do all the things that I need to do if I don't have money, and you cannot fight the state of Washington with no money.
She's made enough money now to be able to fund private investigators, DNA analysis, lawyers, crime scene reconstruction experts, and even animators. Whatever it takes to keep her investigation moving forward.
My dad had always said that the best way to make money is through real estate. I started saving money and buying dumpy homes, and so after work I'd go there and fix them and rent them out, and as luck would have it, you know, the market started to get better, and so I had some money. So I remember I was opening up a business, and my attorney said, well, aren't we gonna work on your mom's case? I said, we are, but the DNA hadn't caught up yet. So I had been working on it on the side, and we'd been getting evidence released and to the labs for DNA testing and whatnot. But I said to her, I said, we're not quite there yet. And she said, you're building up your war chest, aren't you? And I laughed. I remember her saying that to me on the phone, and I said, yeah, I am.
All that work and preparation just might finally pay off. Pune thinks she's getting very close to proving who really killed her mother.
I always knew I was going to solve my mom's homicide. That was never a question. I just didn't think it was going to take 31 years. It's like playing a game of chess, right? So you're making your moves and you're anticipating what the killer's going to do once they see you coming, or you're anticipating what the state of Washington's going to do once they see you coming. So it's a game of chess. And I literally had 3 boards set out. One was for the killer, one was for the state of Washington. There's a third one at play I'm still working at. But if you can visualize this board game, you're making moves, you're anticipating what they're going to be doing, and then you're making the next move. And I remember looking in the mirror and after all that time of crying and going, you can't do it, or trying to think it out, and I looked in the mirror and I said, checkmate.
At this point, Pune's investigation ultimately hinges on DNA. For a long time, the samples pulled from her mom's sweater just weren't good enough for the available DNA technology. But as scientific progress has steadily marched forward, that has changed.
I knew that there was no way the DA was going to reopen my dad's case. The state of Washington's crime lab had said that the gun owned by my father matched the bullet that murdered my mom, despite evidence showing to the contrary, and despite 2 defense experts saying they disagreed. So I knew that the only way that I was going to be able to get the DA to revisit my mom's homicide was to through DNA. So in 2013, the detective at Clark County Sheriff's Office sent the clothing in, and they were able to get DNA off my mom's clothes. And they were instructed to get DNA off of certain areas. Clearly the left side was of interest because that's where we know that she was approached from the left side. But there was nothing we could do about it at that point because the DNA that they collected off my mom's sweater was in a mixture form. They just didn't have the technology in 2013 to be able to separate that. And so we had to wait. So we kept a real close eye on the technology, and finally we got to a point where we had the technology to look at a mixture. And the lab said the problem was we did not have enough DNA to be able to do like CODIS, you know how like cops will do ancestry stuff or familial DNA. That wasn't going to be the case in this case. I had to have a shooter. I had to have a suspect.
After 31 years, she now thinks she has one. There are a few hurdles left, but she's rapidly closing in on her target.
I don't want my mom's killers to know what's coming. My mom didn't know what was coming. My dad didn't know what was going to happen. One act of that, however long it took them to murder my mother, changed our lives forever. So I kind of wanted to reciprocate that. I've thought about it for 31 years, and I'm really looking forward to it.